That's all right.
So I'm here with James and Natoya, and I was wondering actually, because it was Natty it's obviously Natoya. And we met at a really lovely conference that was put on by the Antiochian Church. And we had some conversations which I felt were little snapshots of conversations I'd like to continue because we picked up on a few topics together that piqued my interest. And amongst them were, in particular, homeschooling, because I feel very strongly that homeschooling is something that everyone should at least consider, if not do. If you can't do it, it should at least be considered. And you guys are actually doing it. Um, as far as I know, you guys are fully homeschooling your kids. But also, James and I had conversations about entrepreneurship and Christianity, and also, to a degree, living a somewhat more self-sufficient lifestyle in a more rural setting, having lived in, I think, London. You both were living in London prior to that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Central London?
Natoya grew up in Peckham. We lived in central London for many years, but when we moved out, we were living in southwest London.
So there we go. Yeah, London. So I'm still in London, but I'm hoping to live like you guys do at some point in the future in somewhere a bit greener and a bit quieter. So I feel like the best place to start maybe would be like, what have you guys been up to today? You've got 4 kids. You homeschool them all.
Yep.
And you're both also working.
No, so we're both directors in a business. So yeah, we do work and we are directors and we run that business, but we also homeschool as well. So like, yeah, but it depends on the day. But Natoya's been homeschooling today and I've been working, but it really depends.
So you're sort of full-time parents and full-time entrepreneurs.
I suppose you could call it that, but I've never been that much of a fan of the entrepreneurial term. I know we now live in.
Well, you do have your own business.
Yeah, I do. But the thing
So
is,
you are
He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, maybe I suppose. I just would never call myself that. The title, you know, I'm out here grinding like everyone else is, and maybe even more now than ever before. But I guess what we've been up today. Today's been rather special because
today's not been an all day.
No. So it's a Friday, and we had a snow day here today, and snow came down last night. In about an hour, and just basically blanketed us and the surroundings. So today has been like has been basically a snow day. And, if you can't homeschool and do a snow day, then why are you homeschooling, basically? So it's been a bit of a, some lessons were done, but snowmen were built, sleds were sledded, kids would do that. The little ones were sort of like going out, getting in the snow and stuff. So a cool snow day. So it's another good reason to live out the city. If you live in London, the snow never really settles, but here it does. And yeah, so
snow day. Staffordshire, yeah?
No, so we live on the Derbyshire-Yorkshire border. So
Derbyshire-Yorkshire borders.
Yeah, I wouldn't class where we are as totally rural because, you can get into, fairly large cities in about 25 minutes in a car. But for us, it's that type of balance of enough peaceful village type life, but, very close to motorways and the sorts of things. When we moved up here, we sort of looked at each other. We're like, we didn't fancy anything that remote. And probably on days like today, you probably cherish those decisions. But yeah, we believe we got the best of both worlds.
So you've decided to live somewhere that you've got easy access to some big cities. So your closest city would be Manchester, right?
No, so you need to do your geography well. No, so just a bit of context here for you and maybe some of the listeners if they're interested at all. So, during the lockdown, I was at a job for a tech company that was based up in the centre of Sheffield.
Yeah, Sheffield, that's it.
Yeah, and which is about 25 minutes away in the car, depending on the route that you take. And so we were living in London during the lockdown and had the opportunity to move outside of the city. And to be fair, we would have probably moved to any city, really. We wanted to get out. But I'd lived in the Midlands for about 7 years after university. So I had a really good snapshot of what it was like. I think I said it to Natoya, who never even visited Sheffield. And she was like, yeah, let's go. But this is slap bang in the middle of the lockdown and you're sort of trapped in a much smaller place going, let's go. So that kind of helped. And ultimately, I like getting out on my bike whenever I can. So I wanted to live about an hour on my bike outside of the centre of Sheffield. So hence
Sure.
we live on the outskirts, and that's, where we are today. And the move's spectacular, and God willing, this is it for us, for our forever place. So we'll see.
Very good. Yeah, Sheffield's lovely. I think that's what I got mixed up. I remember Staffordshire kind of sounds like Sheffield anyway. My geography is obviously awful, and
You're
I
just
say that
coming at this like a typical Londoner, and we used to be typical
Yeah,
Londoners.
that's
I
So
say
you
that I say that I love I say that I love the UK. I actually don't know enough about it
shire
at all.
or stuff, but we get it. But again, this detail is incredibly important. So again, when I talk to Londoners, I say Junction 30, the M1, they go like, but round here, that's obviously a very, very important thing.
I
But so
think it's important though, isn't it? Because like I think a lot of people have this kind of fantasy or genuine plan or desire to move out to the countryside, right? This vague urge, right? That they know they want. And then people will buy this rural property thinking this is perfect. I'm going to get the exact opposite of what I've been, dealing with the chaos of London, and then actually find it's not suitable. And you guys have made the quite, prudent decision to be somewhere that you can have access to a large enough city and also the benefits of the countryside, which I think is
yeah.
probably
again,
the wisest choice for most people.
it was, but it also the job I was offered was very dependent on that, right? So gave us the pinpoint, and I wanted to cycle in, so that was it. I think
I,
if we did it again, we'd probably go a bit further out a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I did have that kind of, I did have that kind of sense that we should be more rural. You get a bit of an ideal in your mind.
Yes.
To be honest, I wasn't really fully invested in the homestead life. Yeah, we know people that are doing that. Um, and I couldn't see me and James building a log cabin
Uh,
in the middle of
I mean,
some woods.
speak for yourself, mate. But like, it's look, joking. I'm joking.
No, I'm not saying that like a diss. I mean, I really just don't think
I
that
know.
you would have.
I'm joking. I
I
agree.
know, but like I just think that we are the spot where we're at is literally the exact middle of everything. It's like
Sure.
right next to the motorway. It's
Yeah.
right next to being rural was up the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right that we approached it from a kind of realistic angle. Like we have
Yes.
chickens, yeah. We have chickens, and we have reared some pigs at our friend's house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've
Uh,
got fish in the pond
we've
and
got
things
well,
like that.
we don't eat the fish, but
No, but we rear them. They are
no,
there.
no, but like we've got and then we've also got like like planters that we grow vegetables
Yeah.
in. And we all do have an allotment as well. So even though
Yeah.
we've got a lot of garden,
Yeah.
the garden is kind of like you don't really want to dig out the garden the way the garden is. So we've got
Yeah.
planters that grow vegetables in,
Yeah.
and then we've also got an allotment that we put the root vegetables in.
Did you
So
get did you get a property with like an acre or two of land, or did you go for just a large garden? Or
No, it's about a quarter of an acre in
more of an
space.
acre? Yeah.
But
See,
we
this is the thing. I
also
think that I've listened to a lot of people talk about their move towards like trying to
okay,
grow their own produce and things like that, and actually the majority of people, like the majority of businesses, in fact, James, fail within the first 4 years of trying to set up a farm. In fact, like the numbers for people trying to set up farms are worse than businesses, and the numbers for businesses are pretty bad. And I think actually like just doing something that's manageable and like realistic is a better approach. And then you can just add more onto it. Because otherwise you end up kind of you want to get a taste of it, but you don't necessarily want to like overdo it when you're making that change from like from a city life. Don't would you agree?
yeah, look, I think so. And look, and also I'd say for us, like, we got football mad kids and a pretty football mad dad. So the fact our garden's primary responsibility is a fairly decent sized football pitch is top priority for me. And look, you're right. And also look, and maybe you'll talk to these guys one day and they'll give you their story. But look, the whole homesteading life is very adjacent with lots of our very dear homeschooling friends. Multiple families that we know are very close to are doing, what
some
we.
degree of homesteading.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, there's a few of them doing it homesteading, and we've got local friends that have like farmland and stuff like that. So again, it adjacently connects with the homeschool
Yeah,
lifestyle, we
so
find.
for example, we've got friends that are rearing pigs. So we reared pigs with them for a couple of years, not on our property, on their property, and then James did help with the rearing 1 year, but then the next year he was like, "Nah, I'll just pay you a bit more for the pigs," you know? So, like, and then we buy raw milk from, and so, you know, we've got chickens, raw milk,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
got pigs, so we're dipping our toes in it. This year I made the most amount of jam I've never made in my life because we have got apple tree, damson and yellow plum. So like, you know, I'm not a big foodie, but like I did make it was obscene amount of jam, wasn't it? It was ridiculous.
It was, and look, I think it's
But sorry, before we move to whatever, we have to tell him what we've got at our property that's really unique, since we're talking about. Can y I don't know if we told you before, what we've got at our property that you wouldn't really get in London.
No, I think I've
well, he can't even
completely
remember
forgotten.
where Manchester is. So, like, just assume he can't remember. Yeah.
Okay,
You can just assume that I'm basically an idiot.
so basically
Carry on.
our house is, it has land around the house. So
Yeah,
you have the driveway comes in, the garden is the main garden's at the front, and then you've got land going around the sides, like it's like a circular shape.
yeah, yeah.
And then on the right-hand side, is quite a nice chunk of garden. Yeah, it's a good size, and it's got a swimming pool.
Nice.
I don't remember the size. Do you remember the size?
Oh, I remember the size. It's 36 foot by 16 foot.
Okay. Yeah.
But just to go through the benefits, like, okay, so I just want to be an advocate here of like living a more rural life.
Right.
Yeah.
For your money's worth, you can get a nice sized football pitch in your garden, a swimming pool, the ability to raise chickens, and possibly even more livestock if you need to. And
Got a
probably if you
four-car
wanted,
garage as well.
you've got a what?
We have a four-car garage, and then we
Four
turn
car garage.
it into a granny flat, so
And in London, that would probably get you about a two-bed flat. I don't know why people can like continue living in London. I can't wait to get out, but I think it's good that you guys are doing something. The thing is, a lot of people could do that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's a privileged position to be in, but also it's not something that's completely like, I think people have this idea that I'm in London, oh, I've got my mortgage in London, or I've got this job in London, and but I can't necessarily like justify, I don't want to live like a fully rural life and be isolated. But you don't have to. There's all these things that you can do that make it that
It,
bit more realistic and manageable.
it is true, but thanks to God, it's like, look, again, we were in a situation like the lockdown happens, and again, people were losing their jobs left, right, and centre, and all sorts of stuff was happening. I got, thanks to God, I got offered a job up here, and not only was I supported in the move, number one, but also you had the stamp duty holiday as well, number
Yeah.
two, and also number three, during the lockdown, especially the second one during that winter period, which was like brutality that never should happen. Let's not bother going down that. We were able to then focus on moving a house, which is
Yes.
buying a house, which is again is like completely awful. So you're right. It's that leap, and we were helped, thanks to God, to do that to get us
Yeah.
there. So as lockdown was ending in like mid 20 July 21, 7th, right? We were here. So we could say, look, regardless of what's happened to us along the way, along the road, we're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you
Yeah.
say, there will be lots of people, and certainly that we know, friends of ours that are still in the city. uh, You need that springboard of some kind, right? And thank
Yes.
God we had that.
I
And
think I think we should the theme of you were talking about how it's not as hard as people think. I think we should tell you that like we lived in a 1930s terraced house that didn't have a front garden or a driveway or any proper parking because it was on a road that was like the parking was half on the pavement and half on the road. And we had it was a nice garden, but it wasn't a big garden. And it was a, 2 double bedrooms and a 1 box room. Then it had 2 bathroom and a toilet, and they were
Yeah.
both downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people that we bought the house from had done up the house in quite a nice quirky way. They put some nice features in. But
Yeah.
this house was cheaper than that one.
Yeah, of
And this
course.
house has 4 bedrooms and, we built a granny flat as well.
Yeah.
So we've got,
Oh, excellent.
that's the comparison you can make between London and moving somewhere like
So
that.
much more bang for your buck. And it's important to know that you guys have got 4 kids, so 4 bedrooms is kind of appropriate, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How old is your oldest child?
She just turned 10.
Wow. So you got busy, you got married,
Well done
had
for working that out, Will.
had a child,
Yeah, so just you're very detailed
had
here.
a few more.
We'll give you the timeline because obviously your listeners can't wait to hear this detail about us. But timeline was we met in 2013. We had our first child in 2015. We got married in Las Vegas in 2017. We had our child in 2018. We had our next in 2021. We moved out of London in 2021. We had our next child in 2023, and here we are. That's the approximate timeline for
Excellent.
your listeners to save them from
And
wrong.
where did you and so at what point did you guys and how did you have this like awakening to the Orthodox Church or even Christianity prior to that?
Go on, go for it.
Well, I think there's 2 parallel stories, actually. So in the sense that I didn't grow up Christian. I would say I was just agnostic. I was never an atheist. I thought theism was silly. I thought God definitely existed. I just didn't really understand much more than that. I went to, Church of England school for a little bit before I moved, but my dad is a strict atheist. My mum is kind of new agey now, although she used to take
Oh,
me
me
to
too.
younger.
Yeah.
And so, it was just a non-religious household. I did have Christian family members, Pentecostal, um, who were my godparents and my great auntie, and they definitely taught me a sense of Christian compassion. They were definitely those kind of people that live their lives in service to others, and I know that I definitely learned that Christianity is supposed to include that
Mhm.
from them. Um, and then, but I became a men's rights activist, unfortunately, and and I got quite involved in some of the kind of right wing nationalistic
Yeah.
uh, political activity. So, like, I was involved in campaign for Brexit a little bit. Know all the people that were doing that, and I was
Yeah.
around that kind of scene. So, but through doing all of that, and that's a whole other topic to talk about.
Yes.
Through doing all of that, uh, I got very demoralized by the world.
Mm.
I realized that, you need something more meaningful, than just, the will to power
Yeah.
or any kind of organizing principle. And I also had been quite depressed in my 20s, before I met James, and I had a moment where I was extremely down and I felt suicidal, and
Yeah.
I remember, I prayed to Jesus.
Yeah.
It was just like the last straw. It was like, "What do I do now? Okay, let me pray." And then the next day, I felt like I had an answer, but I don't remember what the answer was, but maybe it was just a reason to go on. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Like, it was a while ago, right? But, um, I would describe my walk to being a Christian as, like, from that moment onwards, very slowly, there was lots of things that happened in my life that told me that somebody was looking out for me.
Mhm.
I could go into all those examples, but, like, I just kept getting this sense that I was moving towards someone. I don't know,
Mhm.
God. And then after I went through the political activism and stuff, and
Mhm.
I extremely demoralized, a group of people that I used to talk to online, we started doing a Bible study.
Mhm.
And then, and then that was interesting. I found that quite interesting because I'd never done a proper Bible study. So we did the
Mm,
Old Testament, the whole thing, took us a whole
mhm.
year. Um, and then throughout that sort of time period, that was probably around 2019, 18, 19, around that time. And then lockdowns happened, eventually. Was it 2020 or not 2019? Oh,
2020.
2020, right. By the time we get to 2020, have you heard of somebody called, Bob from Speaker's Corner?
No, I don't know Speaker's Corner very much. I went there for the first time the other day with our friend on a Sunday evening. It was yeah.
Right, okay. Lord have mercy.
Yeah, that's the what yeah, that yeah.
My friend.
Uh, um, I don't know who his friend is, sorry. I'm talking about Bob.
Oh, right.
So I did used to go to Speaker's Corner occasionally as a men's rights activist, boo. I met Bob through another friend, and he's an evangelist. He's a full-time evangelist. He's an ecumenical evangelist, meaning he doesn't mind what type of Christian you become as long as it's biblical in his eyes. And he
Yeah,
thinks orthodoxy is cool. He doesn't have a problem with orthodoxy.
yeah.
And he started doing a bit of a discipleship with me and James. And I don't want to speak for James's story, but what happened around that time was James was like doing his thing, you know, being a good husband and whatnot, right? And just living his life. But he's really into sport and he's really into boxing.
I'm glad you mentioned that, right?
Yeah, so I'll give it to you because I don't want to talk for you anymore.
No, and this is one of the reasons why God is so amazing. So, look, my boxing is my thing. It's really like a passion and an interest and lots of fun.
Mhm,
It's rubbish at the moment to watch for a number of reasons, and boxing fans will know that, but it's a lot of fun. And it became a much more a part of my schedule when I became like a full-time dad because
mhm.
it's on Saturday nights. I never go out. It's a good escape. And I've bonded, I'd say, like my two biggest friends in orthodoxy outside of you, Will, are one is a professional boxer and one is a boxing aficionado. So I
Okay.
was reading lots and lots of boxing autobiographies, and this is one of the signals.
Yeah,
And I kept seeing these signals about how many boxers were Christians, how many trainers were Christians, and it makes
mhm,
sense, right? John 3:16 and all that, and it kind
yeah,
of makes sense, right? And so that was an influence. Now, the reason why God is so amazing in this instance is, um, 30 seconds ago,
mhm,
I got a message from my godson, who is a professional boxer,
yeah,
and he just sent me a message, and I'll show Natoya. It's here on this as well. If you want to pull it up on your phone, you can. The guy on Instagram is called Chamberlain underscore. This
yeah,
minute, he just sent me a post from a pretty famous British. He's been a British champion, world championship contender called Isaac Chamberlain, who was
yeah.
baptized Orthodox 5 days ago. He just
Oh,
sent
wow.
it. Will
Wow.
sent me that a minute ago.
Amazing.
Right,
Where's he based? Is he somewhere
Isaac Chamberlain,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
Brixton.
oh
So he's
So
nice.
been baptized in London?
I don't know where that church is.
Let me
He
see.
doesn't say.
Oh,
Um,
that's a nice church.
Hell
so
yeah.
look again. So I thought Natoya might mention boxing, and literally my godson Nathan just sent me that, and I just messaged him back and sort of said, "Oh, haha, yeah, you are now my number two or number two most famous Orthodox celebrity."
Yeah.
Because the
Excellent.
thing is, like, all the Orthodox celebrities you kind of know, they're all like these YouTube academia type, sort of
Yeah,
like big brain types, and that's great. You know, they're amazing. But to sort of like actually have people, I would say, with like mainstream cachet in
yeah.
my world to be Orthodox is really important. So if you're not
Yeah,
following,
it proves that it's not an academic glory to God. It proves that it's not like an academic pursuit or like a, for want of a better word, like a nerdy thing.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think
no, I
that
hear
there's
you.
more people who are becoming Orthodox through other channels now, which is really encouraging.
Look, you're right, and again, I guess just to loop me into this story, as I say, and Natoya says, you know, our experiences are shared. You know, we are one flesh. But for me, so I was Christian Church of England, and again, I was born in '76, so 10 years older, and I think lived a life of agnosticism really. And you know, one of my teachers was very involved in the church. He used to play the organ, and he molested some kids in our class at church,
Mm.
and like we were 8, 9-year-old boys at the time who were interesting creatures because I have one, and
Mm.
I remember we sort of knew about it, and we were like, yeah, we're just going to not go to that church thing because it's just, we're not into that stuff, and then you move
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
But then obviously what happened throughout the 80s, 90s, noughties was like church disappeared from our culture completely. There's kind of like, as culture driven kids that we were, me and my brother, it was like, it was all, church was the opposite of that, right? There was no real kind of, I guess, mega church or modern church movement or anything like that at this particular
yeah,
time. It was, as you say, we would never consider orthodoxy at that particular time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it was only, as Natoya said, fast forward to the lockdown, when you're in a situation where it's the collapse of society, it's the removal of all truth, it's proper end time stuff.
hmm
And certainly what I didn't know was this had been written about before, this had been
hmm
outlined, there were
yeah,
solutions for all this. I didn't know this because I'd never been
yeah,
taught that.
yeah,
Like most kind of like average bods, I knew about Noah, I knew about Old Testament stuff, and I knew a little bit of bits and bobs. And again, I come from a world where you were taught quite a lot of RE back in school back then, quite a lot.
yeah,
But
yeah,
obviously, the world had got in front of me and it had washed
yeah,
away, and it was what it was. And
yeah.
it's like when we're sat there not able to go out, and as Natoya said, we started working with an evangelist, and I didn't know how internet famous he was, but he is really,
He's really famous
really,
now.
really internet famous,
Yeah.
right? And God
You
bless
say?
him.
Did you say Bob from Speaker's Corner?
Bob
Yeah,
from Speaker's Corner. People call him Bob the Builder as a nickname. Yeah. Bob, just type in Bob Speaker's Corner. Yeah. So like Bob is not Orthodox. He goes to an Anglo-Catholic church. He's Protestant. Although pray for Bob. If he hears this, he
he
knows I'm
knows,
already praying for him.
of course.
Anyway, but like uh but I, being the type of person that I am, when I look into things, I tend to really look into them because I really want to understand them. And so I was following the trend because there was a trend starting of sort of people that had been involved in these kind of right wing politics starting to
Yeah,
make
yeah,
the argument that we need to be Christian,
yeah,
be cultural Christian.
yeah,
You had atheists saying, "I will be a cultural Christian just because it's
yeah,
cohesive
yeah, yeah,
society."
yeah,
So I,
yeah,
I accepted those arguments, and then
yeah.
I also accepted a lot of the kind of conservative arguments. I don't know if you can hear me, but
I
um,
can. Yeah,
those arguments that are like critical of the Enlightenment. Um, from the early 19th century, 18th century time period, and I accepted those arguments. I agreed with them. I thought, as soon as I read some, I really looked because I didn't really study history. My background is I studied journalism, but then I became an event manager. So I wasn't like a academic type or scholarly in that
you
way.
had enough of a
Yeah, I had a
intellectual curiosity
curiosity.
to like really dig
Yeah.
deeper
I mean, I
into
wanted
all
to
these
be a
things.
journalist, so I had that kind of like I want to look into things, researching kind of. But I was also I'm not an academic, scholarly,
You see, the
nerdy.
thing is, though, I think these two things can often be conflated as well. Because I'm not an academic type either. But what I had was this really, really strong feeling that I needed to know what the truth was, and it didn't
Yes,
matter.
yes,
And the thing is, it didn't actually. And this is where another thing where you know, like it's not truth is not an academic
no,
subject that you can dissect. It's something that's holistic, and I think that it can hit you from a historical argument, it can hit you from a theological argument, but for me, it more hit me in this kind of overall holistic sense of like coherence
well, I
with
only
orthodoxy.
looked into the history because I was obsessed with the truth, like you are or were.
Mm, yeah,
The reason I was involved in the politics and the men's rights stuff was because I was really, really fixated on the truth. I was always like an alternative type, always open to alternative things, a bit of libertarian anarchist type of personality in the
like
beginning.
going against the grain.
Right. Yeah. And that's in my family background as well, which is doesn't help things. But anyway, and then but I did accept those arguments, and then it did lead me to look into history a little bit. And then I just looked into it and I said, well, why would you get rid of the monasteries? Like the Reformation just seems like they just went too over the top. I don't get it. Like I immediately just wrote off Protestantism. I was like,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. And
Yeah.
then I looked into Roman Catholicism, and then I immediately was like, well, the papal supremacy thing seems a bit, I
Yeah.
wasn't convinced by that.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I remember a friend of mine was like, "You not heard of Orthodoxy yet?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm getting a sense that there's something else that was going on." And then she prompted me, and then there was some stuff online that started talking about it. So that was me then suddenly just went right in to researching it. And then as soon as I saw it, it was like, why on earth would I not be Orthodox? Like,
Yeah.
as soon as I saw an icon, I was
Yeah.
like, why would I not want icons in my house? Why would I not want to go to church that looks like this? Why would I not want to like have a more holistic way of, I don't know, it just
Yeah.
completely clicked.
Yeah,
Um,
it clicks. It clicks,
yeah.
and that's the thing. It can click for, as I said, there's nothing wrong with academia. I know some of the best priests that I can think of are like really rigorous, like academics, as well as being spiritual, holy men. And so there's not a conflict between the two, but it clicks for you in some way. And then once it's clicked, it's very hard. Well, I'd say it's almost impossible for it to unclick.
Yeah, I agree with that, and you describe it really well. And I think, look, my journey to it was different to Natoya's. We ended up in a similar destination, but in terms of like she would be asking those questions, I wasn't. You
No.
know, I just spent, as culture formed through 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, I just hoovered up all of it and filled
Yeah.
my head with all that particular stuff. And ultimately, as I said, it was only when when it came to the lockdown, which was that kind of like, this can't be it. Like, this
Yeah.
can't all be for this, this type moment, which started the exploration.
Mm.
Just going back to the evangelist point, it was really, really helpful for me just to be able to sit down there with someone and just ask those just ridiculous questions, that
Hmm.
all the baggage that I had around Christianity, because I wasn't asking those questions.
Hmm.
And, that was really, really helpful.
Hmm.
And it was about then to sort of like then start to go down that particular journey. And the other thing I
Yeah.
would say, and I say this to lots of my non-practicing Christian
Yeah.
friends my age,
Yeah.
is I say to them, look, you are basically living a Christian life.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's just not being sold to you like that.
Hmm.
Yes, you might still, gamble occasionally or whatever. And as Toya said, there's not, that kind of happens, but you're living a Christian life
Hmm.
for the most part, but it's not being positioned to you like that. And once you're in that room and you're thinking, well, actually, yes, I am.
Hmm.
And then the other parts that come to it that you're probably not doing,
Hmm.
tithing and praying. And I mean, you might tithe in some sort of way, with GoFundMe's or whatever it is. So you probably
Mhm,
do that,
mhm, mhm.
right? But it's realizing how close to it you are.
Yeah,
When
and also that what you're saying is
you
that well,
perceive that
ultimately
you're miles off it.
we're formed with like a basic structure of the way we think about ourselves, other people, ethics. You know, even to an extent like the purpose of our life and the afterlife. All of that is formed by fundamentally Christian values, even if they are kind of Western, and kind of distorted to a degree by the Enlightenment and also the Reformation and all these kinds of things. Actually, when people rediscover, I find that it rediscover the true Christian like substrate that's underneath all of that kind of murky water. It's like they feel like they're on solid ground again. It's like you're not taking in something new to become orthodox. You're actually just going through all the crap that is kind of on top of the real foundation of who you are and rediscovering it. And it's like hitting the ground again. It's not a foreign thing. Even if the priest may be chanting in Greek or Slavonic, it's like I felt more at home in a predominantly a Cypriot church in Kentish Town with a bunch of people there than I had in like maybe a decade. Like I was like, wow, because it felt like I was a human being again. Because I was,
When we moved up here, we didn't know a single soul, a single sausage, right? And Natoya's, and a lot through her diligence and outreach, basically just, and because the internet being what it would be, sort of we met
Yeah.
the vast majority of people that we got to know quite quickly were homeschoolers,
Yeah.
right?
Can I?
And so I would say, in terms of that network and folks that we know, and this is before we established ourselves in a church and stuff like that, are homeschoolers. So the vast majority of the kids, I suppose, we know are homeschoolers around here. So we know a lot, but that's not to say there are that many of them. It's about 1% of kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a bit of an extrovert, as you probably know, and so I just kind of found some Facebook groups, and also because of lockdowns, as I said, I was a more alternative type, so I was in these anti-lockdown groups and stuff, and
Yeah,
I. I did get friendly with a couple of people, and then they put me in contact with, other one or two people.
yeah,
By the time we got up here, there was one family that I discovered that lived, because there was a lot of people that live in Sheffield, because we're near Sheffield, but we're outside of Sheffield.
yeah,
And then, but then I discovered a family that lived in a village down the road, and she was super friendly, and me and her got along really quickly, which was the grace of God, because that was
yeah,
sometimes, you meet people and it just doesn't click.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's,
yeah,
I don't know. With her, we became good friends, and now, I also was part of an organization that is an American classical education. They help you to organize communities, like co-op
yeah.
communities. So I was part of that, sort of, although it
What's the
was
name of that organization?
okay. So I'll tell you, but I'm not with them anymore. Um, so they're called Classical Conversations.
Yeah,
So I was with them when I was in London for a bit. Um, and I made some connections through them, and we started a group. I started a group in our granny flat,
yeah,
and so we had three families,
yeah,
three or we oscillated between four, but you probably couldn't get more than four families in that flat anyway.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and we did the curriculum for a couple of years,
yeah.
and it was a great experience, and they've got some really good content. However, they're not the type of Christians that I want to be associated with.
No,
Unfortunately, they are associated with someone called Doug Wilson,
yeah,
who's a major player in Christian nationalism, which is a whole
yeah,
other subject.
yeah,
But there are some good there's some good content on that program, but
yes.
I'm not me mentioning this is not this is me saying that I do not want to be associated with them in any way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's important. I mean, but you,
To say that.
yeah,
But there's lovely people involved in that organization in the UK, like, they're really nice, sincere Christians. Yeah, that's another conversation. But eventually I expanded the community, in the sense that I was part of another group, and there's a nice network of home educating Christians in this area, mainly sort of around Sheffield, and so I've got
okay.
to know that community.
So
And
is it a
now,
bit of a hub in Sheffield then, would you say?
I mean, Sheffield's a city, so every city has.
Do you just mean generally because it's a city, there are more people and
Yeah,
therefore there's more
I
homeschools
would
there?
say every city does have like will have a hub of home educators who all try and do stuff and organize things on Facebook. But I would say that perhaps Sheffield has got it's got a it's got a good amount of Christians, and it's got a lot of the kind of like alternative lefty unschooler types, the more
Well, yeah.
hippie side,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
definitely like to home ed as well. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
definitely probably a good portion of them like in Sheffield. But
And so could I
now,
just ask at this point, so did you pull your kids out of mainstream education and then or have you always been homeschoolers?
yeah, so we've always been home educators.
Oh, wow, okay. So prior to even becoming, so your journey towards the church was actually like, that was after you got involved in the homeschooling scene.
Yes,
Yeah.
as I said, I was somebody that was always I was a bit alternative. So in the sense that I was open to other perspectives. I was into conspiracy theories a bit, and
Sure.
I did become a right wing actor. Come on,
We love a bit of tinfoil over here. That's all good. We
Yeah,
love a bit of
I've
tinfoil.
moved on from a lot of that, but I'm just saying that I was sort of a bit like that, and I came at it originally because I was kind of libertarian. I did not like the idea of my kids going to a government-run school.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, to be honest, these days I'm not that bothered about the government as an entity. I think the
Yeah.
government is necessary evil.
Yeah.
I'm pretty strong monarchist, to be honest. Which when you're orthodox, you eventually get there.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
uh,
I say, even if our monarchy is Freemasonic, I'm still a monarchist.
yeah, yeah, and that's a whole other
For
conversation.
want of a better, yeah. Anyway,
But I'm just saying that in the beginning it was because I was a bit of a libertarian and I didn't really want to pay for private school. Not as if that James, James earns decent money, but it's expensive to send your kid to a private school. But
yeah, time still.
my daughter did start out at a Steiner kindergarten, and there's some aspects of Steiner theory that I don't mind. I think's all right. And but they're all the parents that go to that are mostly like very strong Green Party environmentalist types.
And
But
how
they
did that go? I mean, like when you were, if when you were like kind of having those conversations with those parents, let's say, and encountering that worldview, how did you couch that? Because that's, as you say, there's a lot of like left leaning hippie type people who are very well intentioned to homeschool, and how do you like fit, that those two somewhat opposing worldviews together? Is that a challenge?
that sorry. So the okay. So in the beginning, what I did was my daughter went to the Steiner kindergarten, and then when she was 4, I had planned to take her out to homeschool her and home educate her. And she was going to, like, a forest school nursery 1 day a week, and then my son came along, and he was doing that, and I used to be a nanny. I used to look after some kids after school, and they went to that nursery as well. But then lockdowns happened, and it just kind of forced my hand, even though I was
Totally,
already planning on doing it.
totally.
It just, like, said, "Oh, okay, I was already planning on doing it. Oh, right, let's
Yeah.
just, like, now it's
She
lockdowns."
turned 5 in lockdown when it was her school age, so it's
Yeah,
like decisions made, and
that was the
Okay,
we're
so
off.
your eldest was 5 at lockdown,
Yeah,
yeah, and
and
I
so now she's
very
10.
interesting experience because I used to take them to the park or whatever, and it was awful going to the park back then. Just like you'd go to we had this really nice park near us. There was a National Trust park, but you'd walk on the paths and people would be like, be going like this, like, "Don't touch me," and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
kids awful. So we all ended up at this playground. There wasn't a particularly special playground. It was on an estate. It was all right. But it ended up being this place where all the parents convened because they they were all at home and they're all literally it was like rammed and they would
Mhm.
all be talking to me and they would be saying, "So you actually want to home ed?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was already planning on doing it. I've got my little plan laid out.
Yeah,
I've researched it." And they
yeah,
were like, "We've got 4 laptops. We've got 4 kids. The 4 kids need to sit at their laptops all day, and then we bring them to
yeah.
the playground, and that's our life. We can't, and there was a lot of like conversation with them about they were really questioning why the school was arranged a certain way, and
Mhm.
they were not enjoying having to use the laptop all day, and they started some of them were really, curious about doing it with a sense of freedom rather than being forced to do it the way the school wants.
Yeah,
S That was a really interesting time, and then, yeah, when we moved, as I said, up here, we made our community, but
yeah,
because I was already part of Classical Conversations but then I left Classical Conversations because I don't really want to be associated with them, but they do have some good content and
yeah,
nice people. But we joined something called Scuole, and which means restful learning in Latin.
yeah,
Um, and Scuole is an organization that sells curriculum. They have a classical philosophy, and the co-founder is called Dr. Perrin. He is a Presbyterian Orthodox Christian convert. So he used to be Presbyterian, then he became Orthodox Christian.
great.
Um, and I think he's done the podcast circuit a little bit, you know.
Dr. Perrin, Drperrin. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he's
yeah,
got PhD in classics or and So what he's done is he's created this organization that sells curriculum. So they, people that write curriculum, and they're classically that they have the classical method built in, and then or the classical approach, and then they also have online schools,
Hmm.
and then they also have a kind of philosophy and a model for you how you run a classical education, a classical Christian education co-op.
Okay.
And the idea is that it's not prescribed, so you don't have to follow everything that they don't give you a prescribed curriculum. Um, they just give you the philosophy to follow. And they do it in a kind of ecumenical way, in the sense that you just
Yeah.
need to be a Christian that's agrees with the Nicene Creed, with or
Yeah.
without filioque clause.
Yeah.
Um, and they promote something called liturgical learning.
Yeah.
And that's what we do now. And now we have a group of 7 families, and we meet up every Tuesday between 10 and 3 in a
Yeah.
community hall, and we study 5 subjects together. Hang on, it is 5, isn't it? Yeah. And that's ages from the youngest age to 14. The oldest is 14.
Yeah. And the youngest is.
Baby, I mean, the 2-year-old.
I mean, he'd be 3
Okay,
and
so
all.
yeah,
Mhm.
massive range. And so you said liturgical learning. What does that mean?
It just means that are how, like, we have liturgy in church, divine
Yeah.
liturgy,
Yeah.
and we have the liturgical calendar, and
Yeah.
that's kind of cyclical. It's
Yeah.
progressing, but it's also cyclical.
Okay.
Um, and the idea is that you have a rhythm or a routine, which most people will
Yeah.
follow when they have kids, especially if they're home educating. They'll have some type of daily rhythm or routine. Uh, but it's about cultivating a kind of liturgical existence that's not just at church.
Wow.
So you start with a prayer, or you start with a hymn, or you start with a particular ritual, and then you make sure that you are connecting things together in a certain way.
Yeah.
So one of the things about classical education is that you study the subjects in relation to each other rather than
Yeah.
alongside each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So, there's a cohesiveness and connectedness to it as
Yeah.
well. So it's
Because the
designed.
ultimately, I think what people need to kind of realize, I'm not an expert by any means, but that the modern education system was effectively designed for a compartmentalized workforce that would specialize in certain discrete tasks or discrete ways of using your mind and your body so that you could fit in as a neat little cog into, post-industrialist society, which actually now is basically becoming irrelevant anyway. So even if you think, oh, well, my kids need to have, need to fit into the modern economy and therefore why would I homeschool them? Well, I hate to break it to you, but the modern economy has completely just been turned up on its head because of artificial intelligence. So being able to think about things and their connectedness and to be able to, think in a holistic manner is actually even more valuable than ever. Um, because it's not people who will have that specialist kind of expertise or knowledge that will excel in the economy anyway. And just tell me a bit more like, so how does that work on a day to day? You meet once a week with 7 families nearby, but then on a day to day basis, what else are you doing with your kids? So you're following this philosophy, which is called Scole. And you say it's not a strict curriculum, but like they're like kind of guided. Like, how does it work in terms of the subject matter and your content of your, like,
So
classes or
yeah, I gave it to James because James can definitely talk about AI, because he's definitely dealing with
yeah,
that before as a marketer.
yeah,
But like, so with the classical approach, you you hinge everything through the history timeline. Um, so we in the co-op, we start with assembly, and then we have history, and we follow the timeline, and we do it chronologically. One of the things about the school system is they don't teach history chronologically anymore, unless you go
yeah,
there to
yeah,
study
yeah.
history at some point.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna do Tudors, now we're gonna do Black history, now we're gonna do feminism, now we're gonna do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Stuarts, now we're gonna do, Vietnam. It's like, what?
Yeah, there's no
Doesn't make
continuity.
any sense. It
They
doesn't make
don't
any
teach
sense.
continuity unless
Yeah.
you decide to do history later on at uni. I mean, even at A level, you only do like a snapshot. You don't do right with my children know a song which again is from Classical Conversations, but it's not just them. There are other people that have created this kind of thing that teaches. They know a song that's 13 minutes long, which has all the main events in history from the beginning
Wow.
of time until 2005. Right? So they could literally if you said to them, "Oh, this during this time period, this happened," they would probably start going, "Oh, let me just think about where I'm at in that song, what
Yes.
and where oh, it happened during that. Oh, right." And so they actually are
Yeah.
able to connect that, which is honestly, most kids at that
Beautiful.
age will not be able to do that. So, and it's
That's
not
so
even
cool.
that complicated, but yeah. So at the moment, for example, we're doing medieval history, so we're following it along. So you use history as the spine, and then you also do Latin or Greek or both.
Yeah.
So at the
Yeah.
moment, we're doing Latin, and you don't do Latin so that you can be Latin fluent. You just you do it to learn the root of words, and to understand how language is built in Europe. Uh, and because there's a lot of terms in Latin.
Yeah.
And then we also do science because we're in a group, we just do experiments focused. Because one of the things about home educating is you can do experiments at home, but sometimes if you're a bit tired and you can't be bothered, it's nice that we have a parent that does the experiments. She leads the science, and that's
Yes.
done for the week, right? And then we also do geography, which mainly is studying maps from history, and then
Yeah.
we learn a flag of the week, and then learning interesting facts about the flag is actually a
Yeah.
good way to connect with the history.
Yeah.
And then we do nature study in English, and the English is you take a source text. We've got this curriculum that has a source text from history, and then the kids use the source text to learn structure and style and grammar. So they might write a letter
Wow.
or an essay,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then they do that in their group. The older group is like a separate group. So and then we do nature study, and the nature study has been mostly like kids bringing in something they found from nature, and then we
Yes.
explore what it is together, and then I bring in books, like I reference books, but sometimes I use ChatGPT and like, what is this? When the kids ask me a random question, it's quite an open lesson, and then we do a little story, a nature story, and then we in the third session we do oh, and we also do presentations, so the kids learn
Yeah.
how to present to a group.
Yeah.
And then in the third section, we do fine art, which is poetry study or drama or debate or observational drawing. And
Wow.
then we cycle them through each.
So debate is considered a fine art. So it's like rhetoric. Yeah.
Well, it technically speaking, we would put that in because what we do is we have the older group and the younger group. So we do history, science, geography all together, and then the English is done as the older group, and the nature studies the younger group, and then the Latin is also split as well. Um, but we stuck the debate in the fine arts section because we actually found that the older kids we put them into 2 teams, and the older kids will lead the team, and then
Yeah.
they will bring the younger kids in at the level they can contribute. Whereas, we do think that in the future, the older kids, as they progress through the high school or secondary school years, they will be doing critical debate, critical thinking and debate and rhetoric in together like that. But
Yeah.
it actually has been really, really successful to do it the way that we're doing it at the moment. Anyway, it's so that's what we do in the co-op, and the reason I've told you all the detail is because we can get a lot done in one day, right? And then the idea of it is that you use what you've done at the co-op to inspire you for the rest of the week if you want to. Yeah. So I will probably read my kids stories from history. So I've got like a book called Story of the World. I've got British Myths and Legends that I've been reading
Yeah.
to them.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
and then they've got their maths and English that they do every morning. That's kind of, like just like they have workbooks or I do have some curriculum that I do lessons with. Um, my daughter has an assignment that she will do for the English for the co-op. Uh, and I also have a science curriculum that I'm doing with them as well. And then in the afternoons they kind of have time to do kind of like a handicraft, that they're working on. So
Beautiful.
like they built this like little robot thing the other day that didn't work.
Yeah.
They built a wooden car thing the other day. Things like that.
So you guys have, like, it's beautiful. Like, it's beautiful that you guys have the meeting with the other families, and then that feeds into what you do. So it's like there's a feedback between what's going on when you meet together and then when you meet apart. And I presume that the kids love to see each other every week, right? And it's great for them to
Yeah,
connect. Because the thing is, I think what I heard, when I was growing up, homeschooling. What do you say? Because homeschool kids, oh, they're a bit weird, they're a bit kooky. What if they don't get to see any other kids, right? And so, what would you say to anyone who thinks, oh, I like the sound of it, but it sounds a bit kind of weird, and what if my kids feel isolated and it's a bit? What would you say to that? How would you respond?
Yeah, look, when I was your age, it just didn't exist, right? So there would be that. And to put it into context, right, you're probably talking about 1% of kids in the UK and about 6% of kids in the US, right? So again, still a small number, but
Yeah,
so look, there's three major questions that I face consistently in the toy. Might be different, and they're generally as follows, and they are changing over time. But number one, well, I want my kid to be sociable. And it's like, you honestly, the social opportunities that exist for us amongst us and the environment and the people that we know is just wild. We could do multiple things
we could.
every
We could.
single day,
Yeah.
right? And that's on top of clubs and that. And again, for
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
I think there are some potential homeschool families that stay out of things. We do clubs, we're in the sort of mainstream, we're all part of that, right? So that's
yeah,
great. Okay? And sometimes they're not just Orthodox, other churches as well. So the kids
yeah, yeah, yeah,
start at a social club at a lovely church that friends go to, a Baptist chapel around the road. So that's the first misnomer, number one. Number two is, yeah, but how do you know how your kid is tracking against where they would be in school? And you're like, absolutely no idea, because it's an impossible. Because
Well,
it's
you
an
could do a
yeah,
test if you
yeah,
there's loads of stuff online.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, but I have no idea, right? Because I'm just not interested in plotting them on a graph. Now, again, our oldest is 10. She will do certain exams at certain stages in the future, and they will be points around what we'll do and we'll talk about. But it's just not something that we're looking to measure, right? And the third question that comes out again is that, like, yeah, but how's your kid going to go to university? And again, that's before you open up the can of worms, basically saying, look, university doesn't seem fit for purpose now. 8 years' time, when my kid is old enough to go, are they even going to exist? It's hard to understand that they will. But
yeah,
also, the reality is these kids, they can kind of do what they want to do. And again, they will
yeah,
work to a high school diploma, whether it's they're
yeah,
working towards a trade or whatever
yeah,
it is,
yeah.
as they get older. And, we'll guide them through those paths and we'll do what we do. But this maniacal obsession of our country of, like, if you don't get a C in maths GCSE, mate, you are going to spend your life on the dole queue. You
Life's
know,
over, mate. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's just
yeah,
Don't even
nonsense.
do that
yeah,
anymore. It's
yeah,
it's in
yeah,
numbers
It's
now.
in numbers, but whatever it is, but like, it's
yeah,
absolute nonsense,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And again, it's going to become more and more and more and more nonsense as this whole system just basically moves to, again, you
It's
mentioned AI,
changing.
to like a sort of like an AI driven whatever it becomes. So look, we like where we're at again, but again, our oldest is only 10, so it's just, again, do we like what they're at, what they're doing amongst our eternal tests that we don't run? Are they cool?
I
They're
think
cool.
also, if you just
Kid.
turn that around, what would you say? I mean, without being like, it's not the aim of this podcast to sort of rip apart the modern like schooling system, but like, what are
There's
the
math teachers and
yeah,
good stuff going on.
what are some
Yeah.
of the benefits, do you think? Because they talk about, okay, well, what if they don't get to socialize? Well, they do. What if they don't? How do you get to track them? Well, I mean, they'll do the same exams if at the same stage, and it's kind of arbitrary anyway. Well, what about uni? Well, is uni that valuable? But then turn it around and you say, well, what are the benefits, would you say, of like kind of what do you think are some of the downsides of mainstream education that you guys are, let's say, protecting your kids from? What would
I
you?
mean, look, Latoya can answer after, but all I would say is that from day one, when we went out on this journey, we all we said to someone is like, whenever we get asked about this,
Yes.
we're never going to answer with a sort of negative response. We're never going to answer like, yeah, school sucks, so blah, blah, blah. Because lots
Yeah.
of people come to us and they're like, oh, yeah, school sucks, so we're doing this. We're like, no,
Yeah.
this is an elective choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks to God, who allows us to live this life. And,
Yes.
do a lot of what we do with our marketing agency from home and
Yes.
stuff. And that's all thanks to God. But it's an elective choice, right?
Yes.
So again, I don't spend my life going around taking a dump on schools because I don't know, because I'm not there, right? I also realize, like, again, 1% of kids are homeschooled. 99% of kids go to school, right? And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
teachers, we know lots of their friends do go to school. It's
Yes.
okay, right?
Yeah.
We've made this choice, and thanks to God, we're able to go down this particular road, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this is where it's going to
Yeah. I mean,
take us.
if you
Maybe
don't
not
mind me saying,
the
like, I think that, what you said about the whole COVID thing, I think a lot of parents were quite shocked and dismayed at what happened during that time with lockdowns and masks and kids being basically traumatized. And I think that, that for me is a really clear watershed moment, I'd say, in everyone's life. And that was a wake up call for me. I was like, hang on a sec, would I feel comfortable putting my kids through that? Not particularly, but that's not dumping on the whole schooling system. It's just saying our society's moving in a certain direction, and there are plenty of well-intentioned teachers and educators out there, but our society is definitely moving in a direction. And frankly, I don't want to go in that direction.
Would you like a hot take from Natty about what I think?
Absolutely. Well, let me just stop the cat from eating my joint of beef.
Got a joint of beef hanging out. What's he doing?
Okay,
No.
Um.
Right. Good.
Yeah, so I think one of the main issue with the school system is that it teaches the children like they are in a mechanical way. And then when they get to secondary school especially, they are taught the subjects in columns alongside each other, and it's all very intense for no reason. It doesn't need to be like that. And that's where I've got to. I could probably be more reactionary and
Yeah,
complain
yeah,
about
yeah.
certain things, but I've sort of moved. I may have had those views like 10 years ago, but I'm kind of more in the lines of like I think that we should be living in a more holistic way, and that's why I'm doing it. And if I talk to anyone, I say I want to be with my family. I want to be more communal. And one of the
Yeah.
reasons we have a co-op is because we're trying to be more communal. And the
Yes.
co-op has two Orthodox families and everyone else is Protestant, and we all share in common that we want to be more communal in the way that we relate and do life together. And not communal in a like let's make a commune, because that's not a good idea. But I mean
Yeah.
just communal in a more fluid sense.
Yeah.
And but my take basically is that I don't know how long it's going to take because things do seem to be accelerating lately.
Yeah.
But I see or at least I predict in the like near future that they will close a lot of schools down. They will claim the birth rate, and they will say that, oh, we haven't got any money and whatever excuse they come up with. And I mean, some of that is emergent behavior or, like actual need to do that perhaps, but I
Yeah.
think it will be a decision that has been discussed already, probably. And then there will be a pitch to everybody that, hey, remember during lockdown, we launched an online school called National
Yes.
Art Academy. And, actually, you can just do online schooling because most of you are working from home anyway. And also, everyone's going to be on universal basic income soon. So why don't you just do that? And then there will be some people that need to go to work. So they will need childcare. But I think what they'll do is they'll have more like a learning center, a bit like those tutor centers where you go and you do online learning, and then you have one person or teaching assistant, learning facilitator to like a class of kids. they won't actually be teaching them anymore. It'll be just online learning, and then, the teaching profession will be completely, like, eased out. That's what I think they're working towards. I'm not
Yeah, that's
saying
an
that.
interesting take. Yeah, I mean, because you wonder about like the earnings of teachers, and I think, well, if you track like the salaries of certain professions in our society, you wonder whether, teachers are just paid, in my opinion, they're paid abysmally for what they do if, if they work hard at their job. And it seems as though, are they going to be as necessary in the future, or is it going to be some sort of AI powered learning platform? Who
That's right.
knows? Could it even be robots? Maybe they've just, I know I've seen articles that suggest that.
Mhm.
But you're saying
Yeah.
that you think it's going to be a more sort of like a well, sort of more centralized kind of like online learning
Yeah,
regardless, right?
I think they're gonna force everyone onto that. There's been a lot of talk with the, Schools and Wellbeings Bill that they want to have a national register and monitor us more, and to be honest, I'm not as much as I used to be more anarchistic, I'm
Yes.
not that mad about being monitored, because I do know that there are some people out there that are a little bit neglectful, and
So,
so
so
I
you're saying with homeschooling, one of the challenges that is a bill will be more heavy monitoring of homeschoolers. Yeah.
that's passing through parliament at the moment,
Okay.
um,
And how could that actually affect you? Do you know like what the practical implications of that would be?
To be honest, these days, I'm not following the details anymore. I know
Mhm.
that community quite well, as
Yeah.
in that are like activists. I'm involved in a secular home educating festival called HEF. And people that are involved in that all know what's going on. And I actually can't like off the top of my the reason why I'm usually the type of person that pays attention, but the reason why is because I have pretty much decided that the system we're in now is falling apart and it's being broken down, it's going to be reorganized. And
Yeah.
so this whole like emergence of a new order type of thing.
Yeah.
Not to sound too conspiracy theory, but that is what's going on.
Yeah.
And I just think that because that's basically happening, like the schools and well-beings bill, it's like, well, we're all going to be forced to do this probably anyway
Hmm.
because of the way things are going on the social credit system idea.
Yep.
And I do think UBI will happen. It already is sort of happening, but like I'm more officially, and I do think that the teaching profession is going to completely be dismantled. What I would
Mm.
say to any teachers that listen to this podcast, I just want to like shout them out because like
Yeah.
I know some teachers who they really care. They really want to actually do their job with autonomy, but
Yeah.
the just doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And my toddler does go to nursery, and the ladies that run there are wonderful. And 'cause it is nice for them to like, my 2 oldest get my attention while your youngest one's at nursery,
Yeah.
and then when he's 4, he'll be at home. Um,
Yeah.
and he's only got a couple of days a week, but I'm just saying, so I'm not even crapping on what they're doing, like, they try to exist in a system that's just not doesn't respect the full
Yeah.
person.
I mean, I think well, in like people, teachers, I think teachers and doctors, I often feel like people who have got really strong moral conscience and have like a
Yes.
sense of what they stand for, especially
Yeah,
in teaching and in the medical profession. I feel
absolutely.
a lot of sadness for, because there's things that are happening that are just so shocking and terrible that must be so difficult living with that like conflict.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now,
I'm interested in, so you're talking about like,
oh,
you
sorry,
know,
Will. I just
go
wanted to
for
say
it.
one thing to the teachers is
Yeah,
that
please.
I have told a few people recently when I have encountered anyone who's a teacher or I talk to someone, um, if you want to leave your teaching job and start an home education group, whether it's online or offline, hopefully it would be like a co-op style or something. You can do that as long as it's under 16 hours. It's not a school. Right? So, I do know a woman that runs a week. So I do know a woman that runs a Montessori group. She used to be a Montessori teacher. hers is drop off and she is Ofsted registered, but she has like a group of like, I don't know how many kids she has now, but there's 2 of them that run it, like 10 to 15 kids or something, and they do Montessori and they do 2 days a week. And because it's under 16 hours, it's not legally defined as a school. Yeah. So I think a lot of teachers could probably start moving out of the system and start doing that until the government changes things. But, for now, they have
Yeah,
that option. 'Cause
that's
there was a lot
interesting.
of parents that would do it. There's a lot of parents that need to work, that wanna home work and home educate, and they do
Yes.
need some form of help and childcare. Like, the co-op that we do is great, but not everyone
Yeah.
can dedicate to that. So, like a part-time schooling option,
Yeah.
I think that the percentage of home educating would deeply,
Grow.
increase,
Yeah.
um, grow if more teachers did that. That's
Do you
anyway,
remember
sorry.
at OYP? So we had that challenge to come up with a business that would help parishes to be self-sustaining, and I had the idea to do like a what was it like mums trading their time or receiving income by like pooling childcare at like a mum-led nursery. That seemed to go down really well with Father Turbo and Father Boniface. What did you make of that idea?
But you remember I told you that you won't make any money.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I said, don't you
You
remember?
said you won't make no money, mate.
"You won't make any money, mate." That's what I said. Legitimately, look at what's going on with the private schools. Look at the if you're gonna like, even though I just said as a
The
teacher, do
VAT.
you won't be doing it because 'cause you're gonna earn a profit. You'd be doing it you'd be doing it to be sustained, right? Or maybe you'd be doing it out of the goodness of your heart to get out of the system, and you probably end up after all the tax that you'd normally pay and all the bother, and then you might be getting a like, what's it? That you get, the benefits, universal credit or something, right? Um, it'll probably just be a more holistic existence to do something like that. I just think that that project that you suggested would probably be, better as a kind of timeshare co-op model
So
rather
seeing it
than
not as a business, then but
oh,
more as
seeing
a
it as a service you're providing to the community. But for
yeah,
example, if a mum was volunteering her time, then she's getting something out of it because it's more
yeah,
like a
free
volunteer.
childcare. Yeah.
You're not gonna
But
make
the
any
thing
money.
is, if you think about it, like, Alex and I, my girlfriend, were discussing, okay, so nursery fees are around 2,000 to 3,000 or more in London per month, and you just think, wow, like that's a significant amount of money per month. And how do you I mean, I'm obviously ambitious, I've got plans to, grow my business and hopefully, God will bless us with that. But then even that, imagine 2 grand or a grand being wiped off of your monthly nursery bill. That's like a significant thing.
Is that because 'cause you'd be looking for like a top end or something? Because you get the 30 hours a week now.
Yeah, you get 30 hours a week. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I personally we haven't discussed it in that much detail. I just think that I know that some people are paying that much per month, and it's shocking.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I can believe that.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You were gonna ask another question, sorry, and I stopped you.
Well, I was going to ask what what do you think is the main challenge? Like, w- it must be difficult. 4 kids. Do you find it challenging? How does it? Like, what are your strategies for getting around the most challenging aspects, and what are those challenging aspects of homeschooling?
I want James to talk because 'cause I've been talking for a while, but I will say that
Yes.
for me, my challenge is that I'm a fast thinker in the sense that I like to plan things, and I'll make up a nice plan, and I'll probably get good quality curriculum and all of this stuff. But I'm a bit ADHD, right? James is like, "Yeah, she is." And, so my problem is being, consistent in my focus. So, like, And so I kind of, and also like if your health isn't great,
Yeah.
so you're consistently dealing with different health problems, you've got to really be looking after yourself. And I would
Yeah.
say that I'm probably not looking after myself very well at the moment, if I'm honest. But but I would say that there is a sense that you need to kind of let go of perfectionism and just trust that even if things are not going the way that you want them to go for a short period of time, you will get back on track.
Yes.
And also, one of the things I've started trying to do now is organize my time through my monthly cycle. Well, I'm not really going to go into that in depth or anything, but the point
Yeah.
is that you have 1 week of rest, 1 week
Yeah.
of planning, 1 week of being more active, or maybe it's almost 2 weeks, and then, and then start the cycle again. And I
Yeah.
think for, women, that's quite a big deal. That's quite important. It's a topic of conversation of women around my age group that at the moment, I would say, it's called cycle syncing, where you just, you're not thinking about being a 9 to 5 in your energy. It's more like, I'm gonna this week, I'm just gonna be more restful. So I'll
Yeah.
just read kids for a week. They will do the minimum, as in,
Yeah.
for example, my kids just get up in the morning, after we've done our breakfast and prayers and whatever,
Yeah.
they just get their maths and English books out, get on with it. And sometimes I'm there being very attentive, doing more lesson with them, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm lying on the sofa going, "Oh, I don't feel that great today," right?
Yeah.
Uh but they know the deal, they know what the routine is, and they've got to a point where they're self-led in quite a large percentage. Um, and then there'll be another week where every day I'll be up and I'll be on it and I'll be
Yeah.
tidying up, I'll
And
be
they get a
fine.
full download of Natoya
Yeah.
wisdom, education,
Just saying the
learning.
cycle thinking thing, is a good idea for women especially, and I think for men, you don't have to live the 9 to 5 mentality as well if it doesn't suit you.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think what you said about letting go of perfectionism is such a profound point, because I think that when we're high-minded, idealistic individuals who are trying to pursue Christ, literally God and man made in one,
Yeah.
we can beat ourselves up a lot sometimes, especially if we're somewhat politically minded, or we believe that we're trying to do something that's like alternative to society. It can often become a real battle of like, well, if I can't do it perfectly, then why should I do it? And actually,
Yeah.
you have to be able to be patient with yourself. I think Father Josiah Trennan said that is like, what's the number one skill for young converts? Is he says you have to learn to bear with yourself and be patient with yourself, because you are going to mess it up and fall over so many times, and not to be a perfectionist, because that's not what it's about. I love that. And also I love that you said, well, I was just going to say about the monthly thing. Like, I feel like as an entrepreneur, I don't know if you find that the same, James, but I have like a yearly cycle where in the winter period, I'm like, anyway, maybe it's something to do with my calling to be a farmer or something. I don't know. But I also have like this yearly thing where I just go completely, almost like dead in the winter. And then in the spring and summer months, I'm just completely active, and it like tracks. But anyway, that's kind of a side point. But letting go of perfectionism is so important, especially when you've got maybe those societal or kind of those voices of other people going, oh, well, I wouldn't homeschool my kids because blah, blah, blah. And if you're not feeling 100% on a day and you do something wrong, it shouldn't be a reason not to do it. And that you
Look,
got to
look,
trust
look.
God.
You do, but again, it goes back to the 1% and the 1% thing, right? It's like 1% of kids are homeschooled, and 1% of kids, 1% of people, Christians or Orthodox, and 1%. I don't know what the percentage of families that have kids have more than three. It's all you're
Yeah.
down here, right, in this territory.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Before lawyers ambidextrous as well. So again, you add all that. It's more a case of the people that you speak to
Yeah.
is just like, well, that's quite a transition, right? But the reality is without getting too existential, is that everybody out here in life has their challenges, right? But for us, it is like a case of like, look, you know, we're in love with the Lord. We know we're in the palm of His hand. So straight
Yes.
away we think we're already in that place, right?
Mm.
And again, we're married, we love each other, we're blessed with children, and we live in the Western world where we have running water, etc., etc. So it's always about contextualizing this. And we have bad days like everybody else, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
Yeah.
arguments like everybody else. And in the
Yeah.
business world, I have bad days like everybody else.
Yeah.
And again, and I am firmly entrenched in the marketing world and the tech bubble and the growth world. And again, and that is facing existential change
Yeah.
of the like that it hasn't seen in 25 years, right?
Yeah.
And again, the daily chatter and patter and response to this is primarily fairly negative. And again, you get sucked into that really, really quickly. And a lot of it's true,
Mm.
but it's about wherever possible, just trying to sort of say, look, again, there's lots of things in scripture that refer to this kind of like struggle that we'll go through. And
Yeah.
again, it's like, having 4 kids, it comes with its challenges. Of course it does.
Yeah.
But also, what about the family that can't have kids? Right?
Yeah.
It's like transition those with a challenge. So look, it's always about, look, it's when we saw you at
Wait.
OIP, right? And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you if you remember the talk that Aidan Hart gave with Father Turbo, he referenced the passage from Thessalonians, where it basically sort of says, look, give thanks in all circumstances
Yeah.
and pray without ceasing, right? And
Yeah.
we've got a song, and we were all singing this morning because it's a kind of thing that you remember. So it's like, give
Yeah.
thanks in all circumstances. This is the will of God, pray without ceasing. And there's a
Yes.
brilliant song actually which does that. And
Yeah.
that's the position you have to continue to put yourself in and realize, like, it's that overall thankfulness. It's like, it's like Natoya could die in the next 5 minutes. So could
Yeah.
you, so could I.
Yeah.
But it's thinking about, first of all, thanking God for the life that's given us to this point. And that's a pretty radical thought for a lot of people. But, but when you think about it, you're just like, oh, I'm 50 and thank God, I got to 50 because a lot of people don't.
Yes.
So, that's it. It's just like a lot of things. It's just about the positioning of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to because I've been mulling over this whole podcast thing. Like, what angle really am I interested? Like, because there's a load of podcasts that are talking about like I love my tinfoil stuff that talks about the technocracy and the social credit score
Move
system.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Peter
that's a saturated market, man. You can't penetrate
Peter
it. Don't worry.
Thiel, yeah, Peter Thiel and bloody, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah. Why is he
frankly,
always sweating? Why does he sweat so much?
yeah, he's greasy. Anyway, I
So, also, he tried to claim that orthodoxy agrees with transhumanism. It does
yeah, yeah,
not.
the guy is off this. The guy is not breathing oxygen from this planet. But
No, it's
let's just
not.
say I'm bored of that stuff, and I'm much more interested in having conversations about like, okay, like what are people doing that is positive, and how are people doing that, and what struggles do they face, and also like how can we all be inspired by each other's unique, you know, preparation for paradise, let's say, and like how do these different facets of our life, education, work, all fit into that? I wonder what,
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
just as like a kind of final, like sort of thought, like what do you guys envisage for the future, and like what direction do you feel like your family is going in, and do you have any sort of like bigger or like kind of, do you have any sort of visions that you'd like to sort of go towards? Do you have anything that you're like, I feel like we're being called in this direction and or to go deeper in this direction? What do you, where are you guys feeling you're being guided to?
Yeah, I'll try and answer that one on behalf of both of us. And look, it's from a missional perspective, like we come at this from different angles, but there is a connection here, really. So, the Natoya's missional aspects will be much more focused on, the let's just say addressing the ortho bro problem that we are faced
It's
with.
the opposite, really.
the opposite, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? But
What do you
it's
mean the
just that,
opposite of the ortho bro problem? Like kind of
Okay, so like I came into orthodoxy via the right wing, via the ortho bro
yeah.
direction.
The ortho bro pipeline, yeah.
Ortho bro pipeline, right? And I'm quite active online in my engagement with that stuff. But to be honest, I'm really, because I realized that a lot of the misogyny and the men's rights stuff overlaps with them, even though it shouldn't, because they're
Yeah.
coming from a reactionary position.
Yeah.
And there is a very unfortunately, the worldview that's connected with it is it's called gynocentrism theory, and it's
Yeah.
basically based on a misunderstanding or subversive way of viewing Marian theology, as in Mary, the Mother of God, the Theotokos.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into the details now, but basically, the focus for me is shifted into um like Mary represents embodiment and wholeness,
Yeah.
um, and everybody needs to learn from her, men included, men,
Yeah.
women, everyone, right? She's the top saint. She, you know, she said yes to God, the Annunciation. She gave her consent in that way, and the incarnation only happened because of her doing that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, that is that kind of sacramental aspect of that is missing in the conversation, and so basically, there's more of a focus on how can we talk to women about this now,
Yeah.
because you know, the ortho bros, like I focused on that a lot, and I could talk about that another time,
We
but
should do that another time. Yeah.
there is a question about the church is growing with just young men. So, how can we talk to women? And at the moment, it has just sort of shifted that way for me. And there were some women that I talked to, and the fact that I'm studying on the course. And anyway, I don't want to. But the point is that that's something that I'm in. Kind of, you said about a mission is sort of
Hmm.
something that doing a bit of at the moment. And then
So if
I
you
think
like kind of doing some repentance of your own around being involved with the men's rights movement,
yeah,
yeah?
abs-
yes,
yes, that's exactly what
that's a
I'm
big
doing.
aspect to it, right? But just to
Yeah.
sort of,
Forgive me.
I guess, to sort of get to your question, if you view our family mission, right, as a kind of Venn diagram of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
three circles, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's us as a family working across those three circles, but with different family members of different aspects, but all really focus as a family. As say, a large circle around, again, focus on the Theotokos,
Hmm.
speaking to young men, educating them through orthodoxy, and ultimately the beauty of women and their role within that. That's a
Mm.
whole kind of world that Natoya is kind of, I guess, in our family, she's like the CEO of that division,
Mm.
if you want to call it like that.
Yeah, because I'm involved in a community project that will be starting like a mothers group thing, so that will
Yeah.
be that part of
Beautiful.
that.
So
But that will
that's
be,
connected to the homeschooling is like a wider
yeah. So
Yeah.
conversation
imagine
about.
that's one circle of the Venn diagram, and a real. If you think about our family mission as a power source, that's a decent section of it there that we focus
Yeah.
our mission or attention on. The other one will be the homeschooling piece, and that
Yes.
kind of like sits into that as well. And then the other circle which overlaps is within the business world. So you think about me. Look, I believe where I can, I guess, evangelize, assist, grow, teach the most is out in the business world because I can
Yeah.
reach the most amount of people.
Yeah.
And I think we've told you our story, and it could be perceived as somebody by others as this is very extraordinary and quite odd. But when you meet me, you won't meet more of a normal sort of Joe Soap type. But that's my appeal, because what I'm trying to do is break down these misnomers for you, to basically say, look, oh, you got 4 kids and blah, 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 blah. It's all this extraordinary stuff. It's like, no, it's all pretty normal.
Yeah.
But also the other focus, and I guess this is where I more come in from my age, is look, you might want to put this in your show notes. There's a book called Falling Upwards by a Franciscan priest called Richard Rohr, so spelled Rohr, which is really focused on impact that people have in the second half of life. So this is a book we study a lot. One of the guys I run a business with, it's a book that sort of bonds us. And what it basically talks about at its core is, as we enter the second half of life, as I kind of am, in a sense, how can we not be like the boomers? And in a nutshell, in the fact that, like, you know, if you go back to the previous
Don't go on a cruise.
if you do you remember for a point when COVID, we're like, there'll never be another cruise again because of that cruise boat, and well, we're back on cruise ships. But if you go back to the previous generation, and obviously I'm using general terms, you know, sort of the grandmother, grandfather type thing, it was like, these were people that would teach. These are people that were passed down. These were people that share and store stories. Feels like the generation that's preceded us, the boomers, like consumerism came along and hit them, and they're like, right, when I want to work myself into the ground, and before I know it, I'm on the cruise, I'm down at the potting shed, I'm on the golf course, whatever it may be. And I think my generation sort of missed out on that accessible leadership, wisdom, accessibility. I think it's fairly bereft in terms of that shepherding and teaching. So as I enter into the second half of life, a real sort of missional aspect to me, and it's connected through my work, whether it's through my mentoring, whether it's through my advisory, whether it's through the companies I build or the people I'm helping. It's like, how can I consistently be giving back to those people that, man, they need it? And if it probably will be men, I suppose. So again, it's sort of connecting with those men on the other side and trying to sort of say, look, you know, I'm someone who's just not going to disappear, just going to be someone who's going to understand that this is the next generation who isn't going to have the generational. Like, we were kind of the first generation to have real generational wealth, right? But that's kind of come and gone, right, as it goes into the next one. So how can we kind of support that? So view our family mission in those 3 Venn diagram circles, and our job and what we have to try to do to make our lives simpler is to bring those circles together as much as we can, because then we're putting the most amount of effort in and being as most effective as we can on a daily basis.
I think the blessing that we've all been given is, like, I suppose the generation, as you say, James, like the generation to your parents' generation, like the post-war generation, right, was like the whole kind of like chain of like life was just disrupted by these huge changes, and that there seems to be this like rupture where suddenly you have, you know, explosion in divorce rates, explosion in single parent families, you know, reduced birth rate, sexual revolution, etc., 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 cultural upheaval, and people are left with this like nihilistic, kind of technological nihilism of consumerism, and that actually the fruit of that has been this beautiful, like, okay, finding the church, having a family, living in the countryside, trying to pass on what you've learned from your, you know, previous lives in like in the wilderness, let's say, and how that translates to your message to people now. It's like God can redeem all of these kind of the way that our own personal lives get kind of thrown off course in a way, like actually can take us right back to where we're supposed to be, if that makes sense. Society can be thrown off in a certain direction by the devil, and so can our lives, but actually God can redeem that and can make it the thing that helps us to help other people. I think it's very beautiful. I'd love to talk again with you both about, you know,
a good place to leave it there, and we're running out of battery. So like,
but we want to talk again because we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, James, and I think we also need to talk more about this whole weird like detachment from the feminine that you're talking about as well, Natoya.
okay.
Because those are 2 like really big important things that we should discuss. And thank you so much for your time. We've gone like way over, but I think that's okay. We can edit some of the like ums and ahs out. But guys, thank you so much for your time, and let's speak again soon. God bless. Bye.